Welcome back to Making Video Your Business, the podcast that encourages you to think about the visual content in your business regardless of industry. Today, I'm joined by my friend Jacqui Hanbury, who is a communications expert, and we're going to talk about why communications for business is so important and the rise in visual media for business. Jacqui, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So Jacqui, give me a bit of background about you. How did you get started and where do you find yourself now?
So I'm a control engineer. I started as an apprentice way back and had a career in engineering, but in marketing, in sales, in engineering itself, in management. So all in big corporate companies. So I learned a lot about communication and about how to communicate a message through that. A few years ago, I started my own business and I'm now full-time working as a communication expert, working with businesses to help them communicate better to their staff, to their employees, but also outside of the business as well. So really helping businesses learn how to communicate.
So what would you typically do for your customers?
So at the top level, I'd go in and talk to the owners or the management and ask them what they're doing about communication. And often the people that come to me are the people that employees are leaving and they're not happy. They might have issues with retention, but also with engagement. So the employees are not talking well to their own customers because they're like, oh, I hate working for this company and the company's rubbish. They don't understand the purpose of the company. They don't understand the vision. Because the owners or the managers aren't communicating that through the business. So I'll go and talk to them and help them understand what's happening and then start to suggest some things they could do.
Because communication from top level down, it's all very well, I guess, when it's sort of in the owner's minds about where the business is going and what the ambition for growth is and all that strategy and stuff. But if you don't tell your people and communicate those things further down the line, it's very difficult to get that buy-in. So how have you seen that change over time? You know, obviously we've come from historic businesses, big factories, big mills, all that sort of stuff, where there was one boss or a couple of sort of senior people, and then the rest were just people working in factories. To now, much more, I guess, businesses that have got people who are split across roles and they've got multifaceted jobs. Has that made a huge difference, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Back when I started work, the manager knew everything and they came to you, called a meeting with everybody in one room and everybody listened and heard what the news was. You can't do that anymore. You have hybrid working and do you ever get everybody in a company in one place anymore? Probably not. Then we moved on to emails and everybody would read their emails because they only got 5 a day. And if they got one from the manager, it was important. So they read it. Nowadays, do you even see a manager email? Because you've got 300 emails if you just leave your desk for 5 minutes. So actually people don't read them. And if they do read them, they skim read them. They don't read the detail. So I think it's more and more important to find different ways of communicating with your staff, whether that's video or whether it's talking to them in a different way or whatever. For me, it's essential to not only talk to them, but get their feedback as well, because if they feed back to you, actually, they might know more things about your business than you think. And actually, that could help your business grow. If all the ideas come from the owner or the manager, how do you grow the business? Because one person nowadays, with all of the stuff we consume, can't have all of those ideas and keep that business agile, moving forward, future thinking.
How have you seen communications rise? I worked in communications in local government, things like that, and the evolution has been pretty quick, and it's been pretty staggering actually, from going from how I started my career writing for a living, with the internet not in its infancy, but pre broadband, pre fiber, with all the the dial up noises and all that sort of stuff, pre mobile, pre phones with video, phones with cameras were just coming out when I was at university, things like that. So this technological rise has been huge, and now you're pushing into boundaries where you've got virtual reality and augmented reality and 360-degree technology, at the top end, and those things are being pushed forward by Apple and Meta and all those guys. But in the middle ground, things like visual content has become vastly important for business. How have you seen that change over the last maybe 5 years?
So to give you an example, I worked with a company where we had a visual strategy, so that they were very clear what their goals were, but they weren't explaining them to the company. So we put into place a visual strategy map that everybody in the company could see, and then the actions needed to achieve that strategy map, the goals underneath it, and those had names on of all the different employees. In the beginning, 5 or so years ago, we had it on a wall in an office. Now it's online, but also the updates that are being done, instead of them being done by email or just by meetings, they're being done by video, because just people will watch that and people will be, oh, there's the MD talking to us. Oh, we better watch that. Whereas if it's an email or something else, or a Teams meeting, they just tune out because they're still busy typing while you're on the Teams meeting. Yeah, I'm still looking at you, honest, So I think the way we communicate those things has had to change to keep people's interest. If people are sat on their phones at lunchtime scrolling through video, then they need to see video from their managers as well. But it's really, really hard to get companies engaged with that for their internal people.
Yeah, it is really difficult. I think there's still a lot of fear around getting in front of camera. I think COVID went a long way to easing some of that, because we were forced effectively to get in front of lens, regardless of scale.
Yes.
Webcams and things, and we had to do Zoom and Teams and Google Meet, and Hangouts and StreamYard and all those other things that became almost commonplace, which previously would have been held for huge corporates to
Suddenly
use.
Your grandparents were using them as well as everybody
else.
else.
I mean, I'd use Zoom to deal with international clients. I hadn't used it to chat to my mates, but it became where you hang out on a Friday with a few beers with your friends, because the only way you could see them, right? So it made visual and getting in front of camera more accessible, I think. But even now, there are still people who are hesitant to go in front of camera. Why do you think that is? What do you think it is about cameras that scare people?
I think it's seeing themselves but hearing themselves. So I think we've got more used to seeing ourselves, and that frightens some people and doesn't others. But I think hearing themselves, whereas when we were in lockdown and we were on Zoom and whatever, you didn't hear what you said reflected back at you.
No.
And that's the biggest conversation I have with people is, I can't hear myself. I don't want to listen to my own voice. It sounds really weird to me. And when I've been talking to people about why aren't you doing some video here, or why aren't you doing something differently, then that's often the thing they bring up the most.
I think I agree with you. I think it is difficult when you first get going and you first start hearing yourself and seeing yourself, and fundamentally most of us don't like often bits of ourselves, and it's difficult, sometimes to see yourself, because you might not like the way you sound, or you might not like something about the way you look. But I know I encourage people to love everything about themselves. It's important that you like yourself first. But I think it can be very difficult for people, but it's become so vital.
Yeah.
Where would you place visual content in terms of marketing and communication strategies in 2023 and beyond?
I think essential. I think companies that aren't communicating visually are not going to be successful. And that, for me, that's essential internally as well, not just to their customers, but to their internal employees too, because you have to be where they are at. And I remember having big conversations 5 or 6 years ago about companies' websites when I was working in marketing, about how you needed to be able to allow people to select things and then recommend other basket, other customers bought this or whatever.
Of course.
And companies were saying, oh, we don't need to do that. And we were saying, yeah, but these people are going shopping on Amazon at lunchtime where they're seeing that basket. You have to change and you have to meet where people are. And people are now buying things from videos, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I know a company who started a TikTok shop.
Yeah.
And they have made so much money from their TikTok shop because that's how people are buying nowadays. And if you don't join that, then you can say to yourself, and I have quite a few companies saying to me, but we don't work like that, Jacqui. We don't do those sort of things. We don't want to be in that space. We want to carry on doing what we've done, and we think it's always worked, so we'll carry on. Like, that's great,
cool.
But
you clearly don't like money.
What's gonna happen in the future?
Clearly
How
don't
are
enjoy
you
it.
going to carry on? And And I think some of the more traditional sort of industries like solicitors, accountants and whatever, they're so stuck in that
Yeah,
space.
it's really hard. I think we've seen that. Obviously, we transact in a number of different industries across the country. We do a lot of work in property, and the property market and estate letting agent and property businesses generally have been pretty forward thinking. And I think that's also been helped to a large part by the pandemic and the fact that agents physically couldn't show people round houses, but
How
the
did they show
market
them? Yeah.
continued to boom. And obviously, when you're all sat in looking at your own four walls, thinking, right, I'm sick of this house, we need to move, or what happened predominantly was people in smaller properties in cities. Well, if this is going to be how the world is, we need to move out to a village where I can at least go out for a walk, or my kids need a garden, or whatever. You know, people who are living in hugely expensive properties in central London in flats that couldn't go anywhere or do anything or even go outside, it became almost unbearable. So that was a lot of migration from cities. And so they sort of spearheaded a lot of that. And you see a lot of content around property and houses and all that sort of stuff. But when you look at the more traditional industries like engineering, finance, legal, there is a significant lack of that level of content. You know, there isn't loads of it. But does that mean that people aren't interested?
Yeah, and I think from my personal experiences in engineering, the company I worked for 20 years before I went full time in my business, we were an early adopter of video. I mean, I was a product manager and I was making product videos showing the features and benefits of a product probably 15 years ago that we were putting out online. We were sending out to people. We were sending them on USB sticks at one point because that was how you did it.
Yeah, well, there's also those cards.
We did those. We did all
cards with
sorts
little
of
video
things
screens
like that.
built into them and things like that.
Exactly. And we did all of those things. And so I was a early adopter of video through doing those. And, you know, people would then recognize me. So I'd go to an exhibition and people would come up to me. I mean, it helped that I was a female in engineering.
Of course, yeah.
But they'd come up to me and go, "Oh, Jacqui, I watched your video all about the CPX product or whatever. It was amazing. And I really learned." And I'm like, "I have no idea who you are." But they saw me because they came to find me because of the video.
Because they'd seen you. Yeah.
And they'd seen me and they felt therefore that they could come and talk to me about their product needs. So we sold so much more of that product than we ever would have done without video. And we were seen by our competitors who then adopted a similar stance because they saw that it was working, and that's carried on. You know, the videos have carried on, and the company has carried on making those because I think it's invaluable. It's got to happen.
So what would your top tips be? I ask all of our guests, you know, what are your 3 top tips for businesses in 2023 looking at their communication strategy?
I think the first one is to be very clear about what your strategy is. What is your communication strategy? Who are you communicating with? And are you communicating with all the stakeholders in your business, including your employees, etc.? The second one is to be innovative about it. Don't just do what you've already done, because if you just do what you've already done, your business isn't going to stay as it is. It's going to go down rather than up, which I think most people think if they do what they've already done, it'll stay the same.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Diminishing return. Yeah.
And the third one is get new ideas from new people. Don't just stay within your own company, you know, bring people in who might know more than you, because you need lots of different views on stuff now. You can't just do it all on your own anymore.
I can't remember who said it, but someone said that if you are the most intelligent person in the room, you need to switch rooms.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you need to, you know, you might be an expert engineer, but you're not an expert on social media. You're not an expert on video. You're not an expert on all of those things. And if you bring the people in who are experts, that will pay for itself very quickly if you bring the right people in and make sure they're good at what they do.
Fantastic. Jacqui, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I wish your business every success.
Thank you.